100 kilometers in a single day. Since the motors are doing all the work, aside from charging stops, it's all easy, right? Nah. You might not think it, but having a backpack full of gear, riding down long, super rough stretches of pavement on a stiff deck with no shock absorbers all day, every day, takes a surprising amount out of you. On my 300-kilometer trip, it got so bad that my feet went numb to pressure, and it felt like I was standing on a combination of hot coals and pins and needles. It was surprisingly rough. There are ways to deal with it though, and prevention is the best medicine. The first one is smooth terrain. The surface that you're riding makes all of the difference, especially if you're like me and ride a street wheel config. Not all pavement is equal. You can go from the silky smooth, buttery riding experience on freshly paved roads and trails to the weathered and cracked hamburger grinder that is older asphalt. On the last day of my 300-kilometer eskate trip, it was one long stretch of really good quality road and bike path. That day of riding flew by. 88 kilometers felt like nothing. But on the first day of that trip, dealing with really rough road out in the really rural areas, even just doing a 20-kilometer stretch was total torture. And even if you're going off-road, gravel and washboard will contribute to your suffering. Most of the time, you won't even know the condition of the road or the trail until you're actually out there riding. And if a particular section is really rough, consider routing around it, or if possible, pick a line through that stretch that keeps you out of the ruts and on the smoothest track possible. Number 2 is padded insoles. Your footwear is the last line of defense between the skateboard deck and your feet, and by default, shoes don't really come with a lot in the way of padding and vibration dampening. Thankfully, there's lots of different types of insoles you can get at places like Walmart. A good gel insole added to the inside of your shoe can make all of the difference in damping down all the crazy road vibrations. They're inexpensive, don't add a ton of weight, and even help with the hike-aboard sections where you can't ride. Number 3, a flexible deck. Anybody more familiar with longboard decks already knows that longboard decks don't all have the same amount of flex. Different deck styles, different form factors, and different brands will all have different amounts of flexibility in their decks. Something like a boosted board deck might be super flexible, while my loaded Bangra V2 in my DIY build is actually pretty firm. The flex of your deck is more or less the set of shocks that a longboard gets. The more flex the board has, the better the capability it has to absorb impacts from things like cracks, gravel, and super rough pavement. If you go too flexible with your deck though, especially if you're a heavier guy like me with all of your backpacking gear on, you run the risk of riding super low and bottoming out on anything you ride over. Especially if you underslung your battery case and run a drop through and or a drop down deck. Number 4, pneumatic tires. If you have the option, go with pneumatic all-terrain tires for your board if you want to add as much shock absorption as possible. With street wheels, vibrations just go straight up into your board, but with inflated all-terrain wheels, it helps absorb a significant amount of roughness. The downside to A2 wheels is that they significantly impact your range, up to as much as 30%, so it is a balancing act of what you want more, better range, which is why I went with my street wheel build, or the most comfortable ride possible. On particularly rough sections, you can even air down the tires a little bit to get even more cushioning while also improving traction. Number 5, practice. A significant amount of the pain comes from the fact that, while riding, you use all sorts of weird little stabilizer muscles and strain your other muscles in a way that they're not normally used to. You go from your daily routine of walking and hiking to suddenly riding your e-skate for hours on end every day. You're going to quickly find out that you have a bunch of muscles you don't normally hit during your everyday life. You might not have thought about it, but staying balanced on your deck and maneuvering it isn't as easy as it looks. Just think about someone who's never ridden a board before and how much they have to struggle to stay on. There's some real small-scale stuff happening in our legs to stay in control of the board. As with any underutilized muscle, the way to fix this is with training. Leading up to a trip, go out on some longer day rides, and put your legs and feet through their paces. Use your board to commute to work. Use it to go to the store instead of walking or taking the car. Number 6, take breaks and stretch. Like any bodily strain, you need to take breaks to let the muscles recover and let the lactic acid drain away. On an open stretch of road, you might just want to keep flying towards your next stop to cover as much ground as possible, but as you do that, you keep the clock ticking on your poor feet and legs. It might suck to let go of the momentum you have and stop, but a good pullover to the side of the road to flex and stretch can do you wonders. Stop, stretch out a bit, have a drink of water, evaluate how much distance you've been doing, check out what's coming up next for navigation. Even when you stop for things like traffic lights, it's a good opportunity to step off your board for a sec and give your ankles a good old stretch. Number 7, a larger deck. This is one that people might not think about. Some might aim for a smaller board to keep it as light and small as possible for transporting around and playing hike-a-board, but you really limit yourself while you're actually riding. Having a longer deck gives you more foot room. More foot room means you can shift your position around while riding and really change the way that force is applied to your body, letting you really load balance your body by readjusting your stance. And this is exactly why I chose such a long deck for my build, and it's especially important if you have a top-mounted battery case like I do. Shift from a wide stance to a narrower stance, adjust your foot rotation. You'd be surprised at how much just a little adjustment can really change things up. And number 8, keep your pack light. Just because your electric skateboard is doing all of the work getting you from point A to point B, it doesn't mean you can just go ham packing your kit with extra luxuries. Just like you would on a regular backpacking trip, aim to keep it light. Perhaps even more so as you have the added weight of charging equipment and maintenance and repair gear on top of your regular backpacking kit. Heavier gear means more weight pressing down on you, making the strain oh so much worse. Plus at times when you have to carry your board when you can't ride it, either the battery's dead just shy of your next charging stop or sections of the road with no rideable shoulder, you not only have to hike with the weight of your pack, but you also have to carry your skateboard, which isn't exactly light, and for reference, my skateboard is 25 pounds. If you're new-ish to backpacking, researching some ultralight backpacking loadouts can help give you some ideas of what's needed or not, and help you cut down on some weight if you think you're running a bit too heavy. These are just some of the realizations that I've suffered through, and I thought I'd make a video to save you guys the pain and suffering on your next long distance ride. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really not that bad. Just one or two of these things can make a world of difference. And if you have more tips, post them in the comments. A quick reminder to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.